What's going on, everybody? You are tuning in to another show of Provoked, and I'm sitting right next to my beautiful little tiny old short sister, Desi.
Hey, thank you.
And one of the best, I heard the best person who ever lived, Dusty Marshall's in the
It's
house.
true.
He couldn't show up, so I came. What's up, brother?
It's good having you. I can't wait to talk to you. So, if you're just tuning into our show, you've never seen us before. It's just a basic show that wants to glorify Christ. And we named it Provoked because we want to provoke people, stir them to action is what that word means. Stirring to action to do what? It's just really faithful Christianity.
Right.
We're no anybody special. We're just faithful servants of Christ, wanting to glorify Him, wanting to use our lives and the tools that He's given us in this great venue to bring Jesus glory. Come alongside of the church and to provoke people to biblically evangelize and to share the faith with everybody that they know, to save babies, because we think it's a preeminent issue, it's a premier issue going on in our land. As Jesus is putting all enemies under His feet, we know He's going to put this enemy to death. Sometimes it feels like it's never going to happen, but it's going to happen eventually.
Right.
And then destroying cultural idols. That's kind of the thrust of the show.
Yep.
What you could do right now in support of Apologia Studios, we're so thankful for them. Of course, I'm an elder at Apologia Church. What you can do is go to Apologia Studios and become an all-access member. So as you get that membership, you're going to pour into your own life just the tremendous teaching that they have to give to you and your family, and then you help us keep these lights on. You help us keep us doing what we're doing, because all we want to do, again, as we always say, is do what you want to do, and to get that gospel out far and wide. That's our
right.
primary mission. I just met with a guy, and he had told me that his pastor was trying to stop him from preaching the gospel to people
Wow.
because he felt like, he said, I don't want you to preach the gospel. Was what they were doing. They were giving food to people through their windows because of the COVID thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, Pastor, I just want to share the gospel. I don't think it's evangelism if we're not communicating Christ to these people.
Yeah.
So he started to do that. And the guy said, well, the pastor said, I just don't want to be seen as the Mormons or some Westboro Baptist church people.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's
that's just the downgrade. That's the reductionism that's happened within the greater American evangelical church. So in this show, we want to kind of take the shades off that and kind of do our best to define what evangelism is from a biblical kind of worldview.
That's right.
So that's who we are, and thanks for supporting us. You can go to all of our pages.
Yeah.
Where do they go to?
Instagram and Facebook, iTunes, anywhere you get your your podcasts, you can like us, give us a review. That's going to help expand our reach, like we say, because we want to try to bless as many people as possible. And you guys have been doing that. So thank you so much for doing that. And thank you for your support, and just the reviews that you guys have been giving us have been so encouraging. And the messages we've been getting of, moms and people just sharing the gospel, getting the courage to do it. That's all we want. You know, if one person listened to this out of however long God has us doing this and said, you know what? I listened to that show, and the Lord, just gave me the strength to share the gospel with one person. I'd be like, hallelujah. Thank you,
Yeah,
Lord.
it's all worth it. And those are the best, of comments that we have coming to the show is, hey, you know what? You really helped me and encouraged me to get out there and share the faith. And I'm like, well, that's good enough for me. It's awesome. So before we start talking to Mr. Dusty Marshall, just a couple things. A while back, we had an interview with Juan Bustos, and he changed his mind about his abortion kind of stance. He went from being pro-choice to pro-life, which is awesome. And I'm going to have a conversation. He's starting to read his Bible now, and he actually said he got off all of the pages that were hating on pro-life people, abolitionist people.
Oh,
so God's really doing a work in him.
Yeah.
So be praying for him. We are having a debate with an atheist coming up in a couple weeks. That'll actually be the next time we record. So be praying for that, please.
Oh, yeah.
And we really want to get a flat earther on the show. So if you believe the earth is flat and you want to come on and have a conversational debate, we don't really do formal debates here. Just very conversational. It's very respectful and fun, and you're going to have a good time. We're going to treat you with respect. But if you'd like to come on the show, we would love for you to come on the show. So keep that in mind. You can contact us through our Facebook page or anything like that.
It'll be a flat-out good time.
All right.
Funny.
So thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate you. You're a member of Apologia Church. So thankful for you, brother. I don't want to embarrass you, but you've been such a servant lately, a help to me lately in all that we have to do. You know how busy we are. And I think you're such a mixture of a man who is confident and bold, incredibly hard worker, great work ethic. I know you're hating this, but just bear with me for a second. That's why I like you so much, because you're hating this. But also a servant's heart. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you coming into my life and just being a part of the church. You're an absolutely important part. So let's just talk about you. I want to hear your testimony and maybe just go back a little ways. Tell us who you are, how God saved you, and what you're doing and what you want to do.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for all those kind words. I appreciate it very much, and it's my pleasure to help and all for God's glory. So my background, I'm inner city kid, come from, not so good areas in Los Angeles, and got involved in drugs early on in my life. About 12, I started smoking marijuana, and that progressed, and eventually by age 15, 16, I was selling drugs, and just in with pretty much like from 16 to early 20s was like a criminal. Never served time, never got caught by the grace of God, just really dark times. I was perfectly fine living in that lifestyle for a long time, and then eventually addiction started to take over and get really heavy and progress for me, and life and depression and relationships just, those idols started taking from me. And, within the same week, in my 20s, I lost a close friend to an overdose and another close friend to a suicide. And I could remember, like, up until that point, drugs for me was a numbing, a way for me to just escape, numb whatever I was facing and get away from it. But when I lost my two friends in the same week, it was like there was no longer a mixture of drugs or alcohol to numb my emotions, and I was just a mess, like an emotional wreck. And eventually that pushed me further into addiction and isolation, but I don't like to use the word God got a hold of me, because nothing is out of his grasp, but I know God used those dark circumstances to bring me closer to him and to finally come to know him in faith. So yeah, that was,
So you didn't grow up in a Christian home like us, right?
No, I didn't grow up in a Christian home, but it was weird because everybody else around my mom and dad and my family were Christians. In fact, my mom and dad put me in Christian school like the first up to 5th grade. And so I had a Christian education up to 5th grade, and then they took me out and put me in public school. And that's like around the time I started, to get introduced to drugs. I mean, my dad had always, smoked marijuana, and that was always around, and I always knew about it. It wasn't something that he hid. But, when I went to public school and started hanging around the people in my neighborhood, I got involved, in the inner city life and had a lot of friends in gangs and stuff early on. So definitely had an influence on me leaving even Christian school,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to a breaking point with your addictions, and what was the segue into the faith? I mean, did somebody come alongside of you and share the gospel, or?
Yeah, so, I had I lived in California, grew up in Southern California, Long Beach area. And then when my two friends died, I decided, like, you know what, all my problems, it's my location. It's not me, it's where I live. So I was like, I'm going to relocate. I moved to Las Vegas, where I had some friends out there, and they were in a worse situation. And I found out when I moved out there, for the first day I got to the apartment that I was living in Las Vegas, the water and power were off, shut off. That was like my first introduction, like, hey, welcome. The lights and power are off, by the way, so hope you have some money.
I made a great choice.
Yes,
Oh,
I was
man.
like, so I knew that was a winner. But no, I met a girl in Las Vegas and online, and she, she sometimes talked about her faith, but wasn't too deep into it. And then one night I had a moment of clarity. It was in the middle of the night. I was coming down. Was on ecstasy, and I was coming down, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and all of a sudden I had this moment of clarity where I could see my life for what it was. Like God revealed to me a little bit of the destruction in my life, and like I knew whatever I had to do to stop my addiction in that moment I needed to do. So I ended up calling this girl in the middle of the night who, sometimes talked about Jesus. And it was like 5 a.m, but she was a casino dealer in Vegas. And she was like, hey, if you're serious about getting clean, show up to church. I'll introduce you to some people who can help. And I was like, okay, I'll be there. And she was like, church is at 10 a.m. It was like 6 a.m., 5 or 6. So she didn't think I would show up, but I did. I showed up to church, and I heard the gospel preached. And actually, when I walked in the church, I thought it was just meeting her. I was going to sit down and meet her and sit in this, small church. It was this huge mega church. And I was sitting right next to her, and her entire family was there. Her grandmother, her sister, and their whole family and their kids. And I was just like...
second uncles. And
yeah. And you name it, they were there. Yeah. And I was like, okay, guess I'm here. But I heard the gospel preached, and God just was really breaking me down, my sinfulness. And then she took me back to the care department in the church. And there was a guy back there, and we talked, and he prayed for me, and he asked if I would show up to a program called Celebrate Recovery that they had at the church, which is, a Christ-centered 12-step. I'll use quotations. I love the program, and I believe it's, the purpose of it is to point people towards Christ. But God really used that program as a discipleship program for me. And through the program, and God working in my life, I got sober and eventually got baptized and gave my life to Christ.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So God saves you. I hate saying you get saved.
Exactly.
When did you get saved? No, I
Right.
didn't get saved. God saved me.
God saved me.
He saved me sovereignly.
Yeah.
So
Us
God
Reformed
saved,
folk, we get so...
we get so particular about it. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
That's what my preaching teacher told me. He said precision and dignity.
Yeah.
Zach. Okay, so God saves you, and then what happened there? When did you meet the love of your life?
So yeah, I'm going through, this Christ-centered 12-step. I'm attending church. I got baptized. And the girl that I called in the middle of the night, is going through her own recovery, and, there's bits of relationship stuff there, but I'm like also trying to stay away from it because, I'm trying to stay on the path that God
Right.
has me and not get involved in relationships, which I had constantly destroyed up until that point. But, God really moved, and this person, every time I tried to pull away, God would kind of pull us back together through circumstances. And, I eventually ended up marrying this woman who told me to come to church in the middle of the night. And, the rest is history. That was 2012. So, 2010 is when we met. 2012 is when we got married.
Right on.
And that was Crystal Marshall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
She is.
So how long you guys been married?
This 9 years in March.
9 years.
Yep.
Okay.
9
Yes.
years.
So you get married, and then what happens?
Well, she had I come from a background, I was always into hip hop music. I loved writing. And I also really had a heart for people coming out of addiction. And me, I was about 26 at the time. And, I would see in these recovery groups that I was in a lot of older people, people that had lost their wife and kids to an addiction or lost everything they own. But I didn't see a lot of younger people. So I really wanted to be a light to younger people who still thought the party life was fun, and I wanted to share the truth with them and kind of help them, disciple them through the recovery process and point them to Christ. So I started serving in the recovery program as a group leader, and I had a gift in music, Christian hip hop, and my wife had a gift in singing. So through the program, we reached out to other groups across the country, and were able to go share testimony and music at different Celebrate Recoveries. And we started our ministry called Irregular for Christ Ministries. In my past, as a secular hip hop artist, my name was Irregular, so I wanted to use that name but flip it and make it all God honoring music. So that's how I got the name.
So what does it mean to be a regular for Christ, if somebody asked you, like, explaining it? Because I know that was your past name, but
Yes. Just standing firm on the truth and not looking like the rest of the world, not the commonplace, to be different, which we see is becoming more and more apparent. True Christians really stand out in their preaching, in their morality, in their moral exemplary, than the world looks to do. So that was kind of the idea, is stand firm on the truth, and not waver, in that.
Right on. So what year was that you started the ministry?
It was end of 2012, early 2013. And my wife and I probably shouldn't have been doing ministry at the time. We were still, baby Christians, and, marital issues, leadership issues, struggles in the household. And, we'd be like, we traveled that first year we did ministry, we did 93 different Celebrate Recoveries in that year, all across the country.
In 1 year?
In 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
we
amazing.
were just constantly gone, on the road. But, we would be sharing our testimony of what God had done in our lives at, a Celebrate Recovery large group, and doing music, but then we'd be fighting like cats and dogs before and after, and then putting on, the Christian face.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that was something early on, but, God, is faithful, and he sanctifies us. And, in 2014, we were blessed, with our first daughter. But, in the news of finding out about our first daughter, we found out about some major health issues that she was having while in the womb at 20 weeks old, which is kind of a crazy story. If you want me to get into that, I will.
I want to hear it.
So my wife and I, early on, we were like, we wanted to have a home birth and kind of avoid a lot of ultrasounds and stuff. So we went to a novelty place at 20 weeks, which is, not like a doctor's office, to find out the gender of our daughter. And we went in, and it was a Christian place, and the woman does the ultrasound, and right in the middle of the ultrasound, she's like, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I see something wrong with your baby's spine, and you should probably go and get it checked out. And we were like, just like shocked in that moment. That's not what we were expecting. We were expecting to go in and find out the gender, and that was it. So we are freaked out. We drive over to the emergency room. The doctor's there. We go to the specialist there to get the ultrasound, and they're like, we don't see anything. So we were like super confused. What's going on? So a few weeks later, they send us to like some specialists, and they do find out that our daughter's spine didn't fully form, and she had what's called spina bifida. And then they flew us out to Colorado. We were living in Las Vegas, to find out if we would qualify for emergency surgery while our daughter was still in the uterus.
Wow.
But in all the testing they do to see if she would qualify, they found a major life-threatening heart defect that she had, so she didn't qualify for the surgery. So that was early on in our marriage, very scary, terrifying.
Sure.
And, the doctors even were recommending abortion a lot of the times to us.
Wow.
And we're like, well, no, but like, kind of like negative information that you're giving us when we're in this time of worry, and you're telling us to kill our child.
Right.
So yeah, it was a scary time.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's born, and was she born with a heart defect?
So they did a scan of her heart every week, and they saw the heart defect every week. And then she was born C-section in Colorado at the Children's Hospital there. And they did a scan of her heart, and it was perfectly healthy
Wow.
the day that she was born. So
Praise
her
God.
heart was healed.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very amazed and grateful about that. And in that time, Crystal and I got on our knees and were like, God, if you just get us through this, in our travels, we will share this testimony and encourage parents to choose life. And that's exactly what we did. After she was born, she was in the NICU for 3 weeks. She had a shunt put in her brain. She had her spinal cord put back in, so major surgeries. And then a man donated a motorhome to us, and we started traveling the country, living in the motorhome I've never even ridden in a motorhome before that time.
Wow.
And we were living in one in Colorado. It was like 10 degrees outside.
Oh my
Outside, pipes freezing over, kind of crazy. But yeah, we traveled in the country. We shared our testimony. We lived wherever we were parked. Mail was interesting trying to get wherever we were at.
Wow.
But it was an awesome journey.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, that's amazing because you were doing all that while caring for a child with spina bifida, which is difficult.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And the doctors said that her, prognosis for walking wasn't very good, right?
Yeah, they said there's a good chance that she would never have use of her legs. When she came out, you could see that her legs, she was able to move them, and yeah, she's walking now.
Now she stands next to me and sings the doxology at church.
That's right.
And
That's
her and my
right.
kids go up and down the stairs, and
Yep.
yeah, praise God, she's amazing. Little Amnesty.
Yeah.
Well, amnesty.
I'm excited to see what God does with her.
And she's
there's
got-
just something special about her.
And she's got the best personality.
She's magnetic.
Yeah.
She has just like a dynamic about her personality, and yeah, I just love her.
I got to babysit her when you guys were having Marie for a couple hours, and Noelle too, and she is hilarious. Like you go to talk to her like a little kid, and she's got Crystal's little personality.
She does.
Yeah, I remember she told me, I was like, we were playing, like, they wanted to play shopping cart or something, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do snap time, and she said, no, Miss Desi, I am not done playing shopping cart. It was so cute. And in this little voice, I was like, oh, I love you. Okay, I'm gonna do whatever you say.
She will do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. She does. She says things in a way that are cute, and she gets away with a lot more than her sisters.
Oh yeah, that's like our little Macy. She does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're traveling around, tremendous schedule. That's what I like about you too, is your drive. You just have this ambition and drive, and that's what we got to do. And I like what you said. You started the ministry, but you shouldn't have started it. But I think, sometimes we got to build as Christians, but we wait until like the perfect time, and we're perfectly capable of starting something, which is when?
Never.
And so Christians have to build, and we grow as we go. Right, we grow. And there's a wrong time to do something. I get that, but I really appreciate the fact that you said, no, God, you put this in my heart. I'm going to build this ministry for your glory, to write music that's going to honor you and bring truth to light. Right, be salty in the culture, be firm when everybody else is being capitulating and compromising. So that's good. We need to learn from that. Build now, even in the face of the direst of circumstances or the bleakest outlook. We got to build, and so I appreciate you did that. So
yeah, I think it's tempting to like be, anybody that's wanting to get into ministry or even just participate in evangelism, to look at their own life and be like, I'm fighting with my spouse too much, or XYZ, I can't do it. But I mean, there's disqualifying things obviously that would disqualify from you from leadership. Even that if you've got some major issues in your home, you probably shouldn't go out and preach the gospel. You should work on your family first.
Yeah.
But there's also always going to be some sort of sanctification going on, some level of sin in your own life, in your own heart, that God is, conforming you more into the likeness of Christ. And so don't let that be a reason, unless it's some major, major sin, for you to keep your mouth shut and not share the gospel. I'm just saying we're all walking out this thing together, being sanctified. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. I
So-
mean, the Bible says if you say that you have no sin, you're a liar, and the truth is not in you. And
Right. And God uses our brokenness, and He uses our weakness to show His.
he uses our
Strength.
mistakes
Yeah.
and our failures
Yeah.
to teach us and to grow us and to refine us and to build our character.
Right.
That's why when God puts something in your heart, do it. Just
Yeah.
do it. You know, I think you want to do it in the context of the local church and get eldership,
Yeah.
counsel, and that's all mandatory, but we need Christians to build.
Right.
Yeah. So, gosh, I was going to say something.
I'm sorry I
Completely
interrupted.
lost.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sorry.
I just want to say, through that circumstance with my daughter, God really did a work on my marriage because, I have always been a person who's, like you said, hardworking, but that could also be to a fault because I think that I can do things in my own strength, that I can fix a problem in my own strength, that I can figure my way out. I can figure it out how to fix it.
Right.
But in the circumstance with my daughter and in my marriage, God put me in a position where everything's out of my hands. And I had nowhere else to go but to just lean and trust and just dive in, both my wife and I. And, God just did an amazing work in our marriage where obviously it wasn't, the perfect marriage and still isn't, but, the petty arguments that we had before were very much put to the side because we saw the importance of, what God had in front of us and
Right.
that we were one flesh and that we needed, to lean on God and one another, and He really did a work in our marriage through that struggle. So I tell people, and I did an album called Beauty in the Struggle, and that's the idea is that, God, the Bible talks about struggles being a character strengthening process,
Right.
Romans 5. And, it was very much something that God used to build our character and our hope that was in Him.
Right. That's exactly
Beautiful.
right. Yeah. James says perseverance must work its course so that we can be mature and complete. James chapter 1. We have to have stuff to persevere through.
Right.
So we say, God, refine me. I want to be used for your glory. Prepare me to be, used for you, whatever you want me to do. And sometimes we forget that it's affliction
Right.
and the fire is the refining fire that we got to go through to be able to prepare it. You always, maybe that conceptually, but when you're going through it, you're like, I'm being punished and I'm doing the wrong thing
Yeah.
and He's pushing me off to the side when it's all a part of
He
His
said,
preparation.
remember when you prayed to make you more like Jesus?
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah. Here you go.
Like there's that song that Refiners, remember Refiner's Fire, the old one? To be holy, like you're praying down the Refiner's Fire. God's like, you don't even know what you're asking for
Yeah.
here.
You want to be more like me?
Yeah.
Hey.
Exactly right. So that's awesome. So what was your first album?
I had a
Christian
couple.
album.
First Christian album was a mixtape. It's called Irregular for Christ Ministries mixtape. And then I had some early on stuff. But first, what I would consider album is Beauty in the Struggle. And that has, the testimony of my daughter in it. She's actually on the cover. And just like I wrote that album while going through that time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was so fresh and real. It wasn't like I waited till after that circumstance to do the album. I wrote it while I was going through it.
Yeah, the lyrics are powerful.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man.
So you got something on the docket, though. What are you working on now?
Well, working on an album now. I'm not 100% sure on the title, but I'm writing all the time. I'm doing a remix album to American Holocaust, so I'll be remixing a lot of those songs with
cool.
new instrumentals, and just kind of continuing to push that because I feel like it went out and it did okay, but I want to continue to get the message out there, and I can just change the beat and the lyrics are the same and continue to promote it because I think the message still needs to be heard, especially the culture that we're living in right now. So
Yeah.
Right on.
Oh.
Well, we want people to support your ministry. Kind of tell them where they can go, maybe to listen to your albums and to also give you guys support and maybe why. Why should we support your ministry?
Okay. Yeah, for music stuff, you can go to dustymarshall.com. That's DUSTY, and then Marshall, MARSHALL with 2 L's.com. You can find all my music and my shop through there, or you can go to any of the streaming platforms, and you can just search Dusty Marshall. It'll pop up. And as far as the ministry stuff goes, it's irregularforchrist.com, and I'm kind of separating the two at the moment because I really want to focus on the abortion side of things, rescuing babies on the Irregular for Christ side, and music with Dusty Marshall, just to give more of a focus there, so people aren't as confused, but they work together.
Awesome.
And then social medias, dmarshall535, and then I Foresee Men is the ministry.
Right on.
And you also have a podcast called Reformed Dads, right?
I do.
Let's
I
get
do have
into
a
that.
podcast.
Yeah. Tell us about that, because that's going to segue into our main topic, which is biblical manhood and why it's so needed right now.
Yes. So, it's so important to me because I just, in my walk as a Christian, I before coming to Apologia, was at mega churches, very much even jellyfish, as Jeff would call it, or Doug Wilson would call it, where it's just not a lot of discipleship, a lot of big performances and big stages and pastors that aren't reachable. But I very much see a need for biblical manhood, to be taught and to be encouraged, and not just taught and encouraged, but men to come alongside each other and encourage one another to lead biblically. So a friend of mine and I started Reformed Dads, which is a podcast, and it's, the taglines, all things are for dads, through dads, and to dads, as well as the aspiring husband and father, to help them to lead their family in a biblical way. At our church, since being at Apologia, it's almost 4 years, I've seen men lead by word and by example, and I've been challenged to, do things like family worship and do just be the head of my household, spiritually. And I was never challenged like that before. I never, I was always given, I would do counseling. My wife and I would do marriage counseling, and the counselor would say, you guys are like a football team where one of you passes the ball to the other and the other one passes the ball, and when one of you gets weak, the other one. But I was never taught about the leadership of this team falls on you.
Mm-hmm.
God's going to hold you responsible for how you lead your family, how you raise your children. It starts with you, and then everything flows from that. It begins with Christ, and then the father's the head of the household, and the wife and the children. But part of most of the issues in my household were a fight over who's leading the family.
Mm-hmm.
for years and years. And since coming to Apologia, there's just really been proper roles taught, and that's what I want to do through the podcast, is talk about the blessings of our differences as a husband and a wife, not the we should be equal and equally submissive, and this whole cultural idea.
Yeah, kind of a cultural perversion of the biblical model.
Absolutely.
Right? Do you have any? I have a couple questions to ask him. Do you have any?
No, you go ahead. Right, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's tremendous, and that's been on my heart for a long time. God saved me about 25 years ago, and so just immediately it was, man, I really want to become a man after God's own heart. I mean, look at David, and with all of his foibles and with all of his sins, he was a man after God's own heart. And so this idea of biblical manhood has always been on kind of my radar. And we started something here called Biblical Manhood Training for younger guys, and of course we're going to get our men's ministry back going so we can focus on the men. It's so important. So if you had, and I know this is a huge question, we could talk about this forever, but if you had a message into Reformed dads and some guys like, you know what, I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, how would you define a biblical man? So he asked you that question. How would you maybe succinctly define it?
Well, Jesus gives us a great example of biblical man, serrated edge at times, speaking the truth, not shying away from responsibilities. A biblical man is one who's okay with the responsibilities falling on his shoulders and leading his family, and in knowing that, in being able to make decisions not just for selfish ambition, but for the good of his family and for the furtherment of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Our culture is all about me, but I would say the biblical man knows his role and makes decisions based on the common good, or the biblical good, I would say.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good definition. What do you think, Des? I mean, from a womanly perspective, I mean, and I know, of course, our standards of scriptures and our authorities of scripture, but what do you, when you think about like a biblical man, like a God-honoring man, like a true man,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how would you define that?
A man that lays down his life for his family and leads and looks to God and scripture and, is basically like the fortress around his family to protect them and to lead them to Christ.
Yeah. So I think Dawn is an example.
I was going to just say, I think of my husband.
Yeah. So what do you see? I see so many things in Dawn that are so exemplary.
Yeah.
He's just faithful, and I really look up to him for that, because I'm trying to achieve that. But I know he's a sinner, and I know he's got stuff he works on. But when you look at your husband, like what do you love about him? What are some just bedrock character qualities that you think are exemplary or really define what a man is in him?
Integrity is the first thing I think about Don. Is he's has more integrity than anybody I've met.
What's in, like, how would you define integrity?
Just doing the right thing when nobody's looking.
Yeah.
I sometimes he'll do things and I'm like, man, if it was me, and I worked from home, maybe I would take a nap here and there. He's so honest and has so much integrity that I just respect that so much, and it's such a good example to our children. And of course, he's a sinner; he's not perfect in that area, but to me, that nobody could ever accuse him of not having integrity. The other is just. He doesn't like to be in the limelight. He's more of a person that would like to be off. I've teased him before, like, you should come on the show. He would rather go scrub the toilets than be on the show because he doesn't want the attention, Yeah. And he's strong. He protects, So those are some of the things when I think about my husband, is, being a biblical man, is he loves the Lord. He leads us. He's a man of integrity, and he wants to make less of himself and more of Christ.
Yeah. He's awesome.
Yeah.
So what do we do? What happens if we don't teach biblical manhood? What happens if we don't model this thing? I mean, what is the fallout of that?
Well, the world is especially even in our country, the world is in the state that it is. And I'd say that men failing to lead is the reason. Men failing to stand up for what's true and what's right and the Word of God is why we are where we are. And, I would say that the weight and the responsibility is on men. If we led better, talk about abortion. Mm-hmm. If men led their household and assured their wives that they were going to be the man they were called to be, to take care and provide and protect, I would say we'd probably reduce a lot of the abortion going on in our nation if men didn't look to just self-indulge themselves, with their sexual desires. We wouldn't have the fatherless child all the time. It's men failing to do what is right.
Right.
Men being cowards.
Hold that thought right. So we were at Acacia Women's Center. Were you there when the guy came and he had kind of that neon Jeep?
No.
Yeah. So his
first strike.
Neon cheap.
Well, actually,
He ends up. He was
he
good.
ends up being great.
Oh, good.
Because, we, in front of the abortion clinic is when you see the anti-man, or what
Okay.
God didn't intend a man to be, right? He's actually ushering his child in the womb into a place to pay for them to get killed because he doesn't want the responsibility. That's the opposite of what men do.
Yes.
So many people say, and we even heard it yesterday, well, is there any women around here? Or, we say, well, it's a man's responsibility to protect kids and protect women. That's
Right.
why we do what we do. So this guy rolls up in this Jeep, and he gets on out, and he's like, smoking or doing something. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is just going to be the typical exchange with him. And he's like, I'm like, man, did you talk to her? He's like, yeah, I've been on the phone. And there's my baby in there. I'm trying to stop my baby from getting killed. And we're like, thank God we never hear that. And really rare. And so he's like, yeah, I'm a man. I'm like, well, I'll help you financially. He's like, no, you're not going to help me financially. That's my responsibility. My responsibility is to care for this child. I got money.
Oh.
And so he did everything he could.
Oh, I remember that. Yes,
Yeah.
I was
Wow.
there.
Yeah, he did everything he could to talk to her, and she ends up killing the baby. But it was such a good example, and maybe so, not what we see a lot out there.
Oh,
the man
right.
just willing to
No.
assume responsibility, say, no, this is the wrong thing to do.
Right.
But yeah, if we don't teach this, like you're saying, if we don't lead, if we don't, as Christian men, teach the younger men and our kids what it means to be a man, then this effeminate man, this godless man, this man that God did not design, is just going to continue to be his model, and his example is going to continue to be perpetuated
Right.
throughout
Yes.
culture. It's just a vicious circle.
Right.
Men giving birth to boy men, boy men giving birth to boy men, and it just goes on and on and on, and the culture falls down because of
Right.
it.
Yeah, we just see a whole nation of men in the dereliction of their duties. They, all this depravity with abortion, pornography. We could just go on and on. Just sexual immorality, divorce. It's a lot of it is men not leading their household, obviously not being repentant and submitted to Christ, but even within the church, not leading the way God has called us. Has called you men to lead, So,
And it really, I think a big problem with it is because a lot of these men are looking at pulpits.
right.
I mean, what's more influential than the pulpits of a given nation? Nothing is more influential, because these men speak at the pulpit as if they were proclaiming what the scriptures say, the oracles of God. Thus saith the Lord.
Right.
And so if you have spiritual leaders who are not preaching biblical manhood, teaching biblical manhood, and modeling biblical manhood, then of course that just flows down into the church, and then that flows down into the culture.
Right.
So it's really the pulpits and these men. And I appreciate what you said when you came to Apologia, and you said, well, I saw these guys teaching and leading by example. And that's why I came to Apologia. Is we didn't come to Arizona to primarily become a part of this church, but I saw in Pastor Luke and Pastor Jeff, I said, well, these guys are crazy. They're funny, but they're actually leading from the front.
Right.
They're being these bullet catching pastors when the good captain in any type of military conflict is the bullet catching captain. He's the guy that's going out
leads
front.
the charge.
He's leading the charge.
Yeah.
And that's who we have to be.
Right.
But I think unfortunately in the pastorate in America there's a whole lot of knowledge going on. There's a whole lot of giftedness in the ability to teach and understand and parse out scriptural truths, and that you have to have that. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
But there's a massive, I think, decline or weakness in just exemplifying what it means to be a man, what it means to, let me bring you alongside of me, which we're supposed to do, like Paul said in 2 Thessalonians, I'm going to share my life with you. Let me bring you alongside of you to show you how to share the faith.
Right.
To show you how to balance your checkbook, even though none of us do that anymore, ever. And hopefully they get rid of receipts. I can't wait until receipts go bye-bye.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway.
We still use them.
Yeah, I mean, having to...
Oh, yeah, that's
big
true.
book of them.
No, I'll get like a
you take your
digital
receipts, right? And you put your receipts in like a little receipt box. And then the carbon wears off. You can't even read them.
Yeah.
I don't even get it. Anyway, that was a sidetrack. But it's men who will we as God's men pursuing biblical manhood, looking to Christ to be he is the maximum man, right? He is the quintessential man, the standard
Right.
of a man.
Yeah.
But we're looking to him, we're training ourselves, and then we're training our sons and training the men around us. That's what's got to happen,
Yeah.
you know.
And I
Yeah,
think, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say your podcast is so needed.
Thank you. Thank
so,
you. Yeah. I think even in churches we're changing who Jesus was to fit the culture.
Right.
And men are following that example of Jesus, this, hippie loving Jesus who just approves everybody. He just forgives everything. He loves everything and everyone. And then the men, I want to be like Jesus, and they don't speak out against injustice. They don't protect anyone. They just emotionally love everyone and everything. Like that's not who Jesus was or is. That's not the biblical model that Jesus gave us. He was a carpenter, and he was prophet, priest, king. He was he cared about justice. He cared about God's law. He spoke out against the Pharisees. He gave grace to those, but he told the woman at the well, go and sin no more. Like, Jesus wasn't the hippie, I love everything, everything's okay, don't worry about it, God loves you. That's not Jesus.
That's good. And you
Yeah.
should clip what you just said, because
Yeah.
that was excellent.
Yeah.
You should use that for something. It was really excellent, because that's exactly right. And we hear it at the abortion
Yeah.
clinic a lot, or out in evangelism. It's always, my Jesus would never condone what you're doing, or my Jesus would never, scream at a woman, which we don't do out at the abortion clinic. He would never, my Jesus would be completely fine with abortion. And what we say is, your Jesus doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
Right.
Because what have you done? You've fashioned an idol to suit your life. And that's what the people of God have always done. Remember when Moses came off the mountain, what did they do? They fashioned a golden calf to give them whatever they wanted. It's to suit their lifestyle.
Right.
It's just to use that idol to give them what their flesh wants. And that's exactly what men have done. That's what we've done.
Yeah.
We fashioned another Jesus that's just completely defined by cultural ideologies, or wherever the culture ebbs and flows. Now Jesus is gonna, as things progress, he's gonna support homosexuality, and
Right.
and with the Equality Act on the horizon. So what we need to do is we need to say, no, that's a false Christ who will never save you, and completely unworthy to emulate, completely unworthy to seek and to be influenced by. That's important. And like you're saying, we just got to get back to the basics, back to the scriptures, back to who Christ truly is, looking to him to be that standard.
That's right. It's just sometimes it baffles me, in a way. Like you said, though, like I think in our last podcast we were talking about what's that crazy guy, Kenneth Copeland, and you said the only thing that separates him and I is grace. And so when I say they, I mean me before I was saved also, but just women that want this type of man, right? That is like submissive to her, or, doesn't have a backbone. They want abortion. They want to be completely equal. This is a whole nother subject that I'm hoping to get on with two special guests that I don't want to say yet, because it's not for sure, about feminism and how this has led to the abortion Holocaust. But you come back to that and you're like, okay, wait a minute. So you want abortion on demand for any reason. You want to be treated completely as the same as a man. Of course, men and women are equal as in value, but we have different roles. But okay, you want all this. So basically, a man could have sex with whoever he wants and have absolutely no responsibility. That's what's being promoted. It's crazy. Like,
Well, yeah, and that's when we're talking about the effeminacy of manhood. That's it.
yeah,
Because when you take a man's responsibility away, you take away his manhood. Because like you define, what is the definition of a man? It's a man accepts responsibility for his actions. Right.
So it's like, okay, so we have a culture that now it's like there's not even a difference between a man and woman. Now, men can say that they're a woman and go and sign up for a woman's sports. Maybe they're just average in men's sports. So they're like, you know what? I'm a woman now, and they could just annihilate the women and be like top of the game.
Yeah.
So now in this feminist utopia, we've got men that are beating women at every sport, or can potentially. They don't have to. They can have sex, have no ramifications of it. The woman can then either choose to let her child live and be a single mom, or go and murder her child. It's just it's insanity.
Yeah, did you see that clip with, was it Rand Paul who was talking to, oh man, I don't know his title, but he's just, I think the leader of, it's so crudely put, he was just like the director of sports. And anyway, he was talking about the transgender issue.
Oh, yeah.
And he was saying, like, in really just simple terms, like, do you really think it's okay for, a 250-pound, 6'2" dude to be boxing a 5'4" little tiny woman?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, well, I think transgender men or transgender women should receive every single opportunity to do that. So he was affirming it without affirming it, but he was like saying, are you really telling me that you think it's okay for a 6'4" dude to be in the same locker room and changing with a woman? And the guy's like, well, I think it's okay for trans. So they want to evade the issue because we know innately that it's not okay.
Right.
These things are wrong.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you take the roles away. But here's the thing: is the Bible says God will not be mocked in all of this. So what do you see? You see men abdicating their responsibility and women trying to take that role. So you see men with no guidance, no definition of manhood, no standard. What will they do? They'll just sit on their butt and they'll abdicate their role and play video games until their 40s, not hating on video games, but not really doing what God has called them to do. Yeah. And then you see the woman take the role of the man, which she's not designed to do. And so it just creates a miserable type of home that gives no glory to God.
Right. So we need little men to be raised up as biblical men.
We do,
now.
And we got to do it. And unfortunately, I think in our generations, there wasn't a lot of mentorship. I don't know if you kind of received it.
Yeah,
and I can't say that.
No.
But especially guys come not in the church and even out of the church. It wasn't like intentional, leadership and mentorship where a guy said, hey, I want to mentor you. I want to train you to become a man. We're going to go through the scriptures. And we're going to talk about all facets and spend a long time. There was not that.
Right.
But unless we're intentional about it, there's going to be no men made. It takes intentional work and training to do that. So it's something we got to do. So I appreciate to know in this podcast, and I pray God blesses it and the message gets out far and wide.
Absolutely.
Praise God. Yeah.
So
that was a good episode.
Yeah, that was great. I loved having you on. And like I said, you just talked about integrity with Dawn. If you guys can hear me as we're wrapping up this episode, I think Irregular for Christ and going there and supporting Dusty and his wife is a good choice because you got a couple who have integrity.
Right.
I see this guy a lot, and we probably see ourselves on a normal week 3 or 4 times a week, and you're in here and learning and just being a servant. And I can tell you he is a man of integrity, that he takes it seriously, that you just burn the midnight oil. You just can't turn off that brain in yours in your head. No, but I appreciate it. And I think what I'm trying to say is it's a good ministry for you guys to support, and I hope that you do that. So
definitely.
I hope you were blessed this episode. Be praying for our debate next in a couple weeks. It's going to happen. Who knows? We never know what we're getting into. Yeah. We're going to share the gospel with him regardless. And if you're a flat earther out there and you'd like to come on a show, and we're not going to attack you. We're commanded to love you and to treat you with kindness.
Oh, also a Christian that voted for Biden. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. If you're Christian, you're professing Christ, you voted for Biden, or you're a Christian and you professing Christ and you're pro-choice, we'd like to talk about the issues and help you change your mind.
Right.
So thanks for tuning in, guys. We love you. We thank you for supporting this, and we will see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.